So welcome, Clement. Welcome to the talk show. Thank you for taking out some time to speak with me today. And before we move forward, could you please quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So for everyone, I'm Clement Kao. I'm currently one of the co-founders of Product Manager HQ. So PMHQ is a media education company. And basically what we do is we teach others how to break into product management as well as how to become product managers. So currently we have a Slack community with more than 9,000 paid members. We have a weekly newsletter with more than 30,000 subscribers with a higher than 30% open rate. And our blog has been read more than 2 million times, kind of all over the world. So yeah, really glad to be here. Kind of outside of that, I'm also a product manager at Blend, which is a fintech startup. So yeah, just really passionate about product management and helping people break into the space, continue to level up in that space. So really excited to be here today.
Wow, that's amazing. 2 million, that's a big number.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
do you actually provide the teaching material to that community, or do you have other people do that for you?
Yeah, great question. So the way that we think about it is I'm basically like the, let's call it product manager in residence, where, because I'm a full-time product manager, I can speak a lot more tangibly to the other items, right? I think my co-founder is an ex venture capitalist. And so kind of he hasn't been practicing product management for a while. Kind of the other folks aren't really in product management right now. And so with that, kind of a lot of the content and a lot of the materials do come from what I've got. So yeah, so I think, of course, not all of that credit can go to just the knowledge in my head. I do a lot of primary research in terms of, what are the gaps or what are the things that people need help with, and kind of learning from other people, distilling their insights into content that's really valuable for everyone. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. And what motivated you to start this company?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of how the company got started, I think it was really meant for us to address our own pain points, right? I think kind of back then, product management wasn't really a thing that people knew a lot about. A lot of folks were just first-time product managers, and they were the only product manager in their company, or if there were other ones, they were too busy to talk to them, right? And so I think it was just we didn't know how to progress in our careers. I'm facing this challenge at work. I'm not sure how to tackle it, right? Don't necessarily know what are the best practices, best approaches. And so I think really the way that PMHQ grew was organically for us to tackle our own pains. And we partially got lucky in finding out that our pains resonated with this much broader global community, right? So I think, as an example, I mentioned before that, Product Manager HQ is, not just a Slack community, but also a newsletter and a blog. And kind of each of those pieces were really driven from our own pain points. So first off, we created a community because we wanted to find other people who we could talk shop with, right? Like get some other perspectives, see how other people are tackling similar challenges, maybe at different companies or in different industries. And so we reached out to other people to come join us in Slack, so that way we could talk to them, be able to bounce ideas off each other, right? And kind of that was really helpful for us to form that community and to be able to learn and grow with each other. But then one of the things that we started finding out is, okay, well, we know all of this stuff, but there is so much more information that sits outside of this community, right? There are all these different articles, podcasts, videos. What are we supposed to read, right? Like it's information overload, because in product management, you have to know all of your hard skills and soft skills, right? You need to know, data analytics, and understand the latest in engineering, and understand, all the business trends, but also know how to influence people, psychology, right? And so because there's all of this content to digest, and it's very hard for us to figure out, okay, well, each one of us is reinventing the wheel. How do we prioritize? We said, maybe it makes sense for us to actually create a newsletter so that way we can say definitively, here are the top 5 things you should read this week that will help you advance your career as a product manager. So that way it's not like everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel all the time. And so we saw that really resonated. And again, that was meant to address our own pain of information overload. And I think from there, we started noticing that, hey, there are people who are asking questions about things that we can't find articles on, or within the community we can't crowdsource an answer. It seems like maybe this is a gap that needs to be addressed in the literature. And so we started publishing articles on how to tackle those areas where people were struggling. And so then that spun up the blog, right? And so I think it's very much because we were solving for our own pain points, and those pain points were shared across a really large audience, that we saw such really good traction kind of in each of our core initiatives.
Okay, that's amazing. So what about your schooling? Where did you go to school, and what was your major?
Yeah, great question. So I went to school at a UC Berkeley, so based in Northern California, and there I studied a pretty weird double major.
Okay.
I studied molecular and cell biology and
Uh,
business administration. And I
oh,
think
okay.
I and I think none of those actually taught me anything about, let's say, software or like, product development.
Yeah.
I was really just taking both of those majors for fun. The way that I basically thought about, why I want to take those majors is, how do I phrase this? I think for me, I've always been really interested in the study of life,
Mhm.
just in terms of like from a scientific perspective. So that's what made me want to take on biology. And the thing is, though, that when I first started as this like budding biologist, one of the things that I really did not enjoy was I didn't enjoy being in lab all day. I like really wanted to talk to other people, understand what problems they were facing, see what I could do for them. And so
Mhm.
because of that, I decided to try to leave biology. I said, okay, maybe I'm not meant to be a biologist. Maybe I'm meant to be a business person. So I
Mhm.
jumped into business. And I think the reason that I did so is I think business is a really amazing platform where if you can find a solution, you can scale that to so many other people and do so sustainably, right? And so I figured, this is really exciting. I want to be a business person. But then when I did that alone, I felt, wow, I don't really feel like I'm learning any like hard knowledge. I really am craving that. And so I
Yeah.
said, okay, it's clear that neither one of these is doing it. What about both of them? And so that's why I did the double major. I
Uh,
didn't do it for any particular career. I had no idea what I was doing.
okay.
So yeah.
But eventually, I guess things worked out in your favor, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's good to, study just for fun. Most of the people, when they study, they have like a very particular aim. Oh, I'm gonna do this major, and then I'm gonna get a job in that particular field of area. And in your case, it's quite interesting. So that's refreshing to hear.
Yeah. I think, doing it from that approach was
Mhm.
actually really liberating because
Yeah.
it meant that when I was studying, I was doing it for fun, right? It wasn't like a pressure thing. And so
Mhm.
I think that was actually really important to my own professional development because it meant that, I felt like I had agency over what it is that I was doing.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, um, I studied not because I wanted to get some grade, but because I actually wanted to do it. I still remember, one of the things that my friends still make fun of me about. One night, I was reading a book. It was 10:30 p.m. Right, I was like having a blast, really enjoying my reading,
Mhm.
and then I suddenly froze in the middle, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have a midterm tomorrow. What am I doing? Like, why am I just reading a book for fun? Like, I need to start studying. It's getting really late.
Mhm.
And so I looked at my calendar. I was like, okay, midterm is on this topic.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I thought, okay, well, where's this book that I'm supposed to be studying? And I
Mhm.
realized it was the book I was already reading for fun. Like I was already studying because that was just so fun to me. And
Mhm.
so because of that, I naturally got really good grades in the areas that I was studying because I was doing it for fun. And so I think one of the things that's really important for not just entrepreneurs but also for students and really anyone in any career
Mhm.
is if you are tackling something that you personally enjoy, even if you're not good at it yet or you're not good at it right now,
Mhm.
being personally interested motivates you to keep going to a degree where other people aren't going to be able to catch up to you, right? And so I think it is really important that people don't just optimize for the short run profits or like short run like how much can I earn or how much fame can I get or whatever, but really optimizing for how can I learn the most.
Mhm.
And the way that I can learn the most is by doing something that I'm really excited to learn a lot more about. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I agree with you on that completely. Okay, so when you were getting into the entrepreneur life, did it choose you or did you choose it?
Great question. It chose me. I
Okay.
certainly didn't plan on doing so.
Uh-huh.
I think I mentioned that I really wasn't looking to jump into product manager HQ or this idea
Hmm.
kind of intentionally, right? Like it was a lot more about, I'm currently working as a product manager. I'm really struggling with my day to day. How can I try to solve this pain for myself? And in doing so, I found that so many other people had this pain.
Hmm.
And that made me reflect back on, well, why did I study business? I studied business because it's a way to deliver a solution at scale sustainably over time, right? And so I said, okay, well, I guess it makes sense that we should try to turn this into an actual thing.
Hmm.
And so I definitely did not, let's say, actively decide to become an entrepreneur. I think it very much just happened, but I'm really glad that it did and that we took that opportunity.
That's nice. So according to you, what is a basic skill set required to start a business?
Yeah, great question. So, in terms of starting a business, right, I think really the most crucial skill set is to think about how do I create value for other people, right? Because the
Mhm.
thing is, a business cannot exist without customers, and you can't attract customers if you're not creating something that they value, right? I think, many times people think about, well, how can I earn a quick buck, right? Like, how can I get some cash in my pocket? And that's not really the way that you create a business, right? Like, the way that you create a business is you try to understand, who is having challenges, what
Mhm.
are those challenges, and how can I find a way to solve that, right? And once you are really focused on, having that empathy of, I really want to create value for someone, how do I do that for them? I
Mhm.
think kind of a lot of the other, let's say, like, hard skill sets kind of all fall into place, right? So for example, if you are trying to work through managing your cash flow, right? Like, it's all about, well, I need to make sure that we're able to stay in business, or else I can't keep creating value, right? So you'll
Mhm.
naturally work through, how do I make sure that I'm tracking, the bills that are coming in, and, making sure that I'm accounting for my revenues, et cetera, right? Like, if you're trying to think about, like, how do I market something, right? Like, you don't need to explicitly, let's say, study marketing, but it's all about, how do I help to get my value, this
Mhm.
valuable thing, out there to more people, right? And by really understanding the person that you're trying to help, that can kind of organically lead you down, how am I going to market this better? And
Mhm.
so I would say it's almost not even a skill set, but more of a mindset of,
Yeah.
I'm here to create value for other people. I'm not here to capture value. Once you really focus on how can I create that value, you'll naturally learn how to capture it, so that way you kind of keep the business running sustainably, so you can keep creating more of that value for others.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this year has been, a very difficult year, and previous year as well.
Yeah.
So people who are just starting out for newcomers, uh, how difficult would you say it is to start a business for them in 2021?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mm.
So I would say that, you know, in terms of starting a business, right? Like, even though the situation right now is really difficult, right?
Yeah.
I think there has never been a better time to
Okay.
try to get something started. And the reason I
Mhm.
say that is because, all of us now have so much more free time. I guess, like, you can't really go outside anymore, right? Kind of, you're always stuck at home. So we have all this time, and kind of we're all learning how to work remotely, or kind of, we have access to the internet. We expect more things to be done over the internet. And so, there are so many more ways to get an idea out there, and there are so many more audiences out there that would previously not have been receptive. They're
Mhm.
almost captive now, right? Like, because there's nothing else to do. And
Yeah.
so I think, you know a a lot of times, when there are these economic downturns, those are the companies that, when you create them during those downtimes, you can survive those downtimes. Those are the really successful ones, right? So I'd say, yes, it is difficult, especially if you currently don't have, a security net or safety net, right? Or you don't have disposable income. It can be really challenging. But the amount of value that you can create for other people right now is also at a maximum, because everyone else is struggling right now too. And so if you can find a way to solve that pain for them, um, now is a really, really great time to go get that done, right? Because I think right now everyone is really focused on, oh my gosh, there's all of this pain in front of me, in all of these different ways, because we're all kind of in this, mm, we're all kind of in this kind of gloomy era, kind of with the pandemic, and, with being stuck at home. And so I
Mhm.
think now is a really great time to try to get something started, because you'll be able to get a lot more of your idea validated or disvalidated, so you can iterate faster on it.
Mhm.
And also, uh, you know, it has never been a better time, than now, just kind of given our ability to access all of these global audiences, as well as global talent, to help us bring these ideas to life.
Mm. Definitely, definitely. I completely agree with you on that one, because almost everybody is online these days on a daily basis. So if you're starting something which people can access online, then now would be a great time to do that. Definitely. And so when you were starting your own company, um, what were some of the hardships, or what were some of the hurdles that you faced?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think some of the challenges, I guess, was just really trying to understand, you know, who are we and what do we want to do, right? Because I think, there are always, how do I put this? There are always so many potential goals that you could chase as a company, right? Like, there are always so many different ways that you could provide value. And it can be really distracting, right? It's like, should I double down on what I've currently got? Should I try to launch something that's totally new? Should I take that risk? And I think that was especially difficult early on, right? Like when we didn't necessarily have all of the infrastructure in place to keep Product Manager HQ running.
Mhm.
And so I think, in terms of, tackling that really difficult time of there are all of these potential opportunities that we could go after. Should we sacrifice what we've currently got to try to chase something new? Or should we kind of double down what we have? How do we balance all of that? I think one of the things that is really helpful is to reflect back on, why are you here, running this company? Why did you start this company? What was the thing that you really wanted to get done? And then to try to project out into the future, 5 years, 10 years, what would you be really, really proud of having done by that time frame? Because I think one of the things that can happen, right, is, you know, it has never been easier to try to measure a bunch of stuff, right? Like you can
Yeah.
measure, your followers on Instagram, right? Like you can measure, how many people are reacting to posts on LinkedIn, right? Like you can measure all of these different things, and so you can feel like, oh, well, I want to optimize all of these metrics, and I think that can become a trap when you are optimizing metrics for optimizing metrics' sake. It
Mhm.
should be more about what is the pain that I want to solve in the world? What would I be really, really excited about having created that no one else had created, right? I think that kind of North Star vision is really important to adhere to as you think about, should I double down? Should I pivot? Should I explore something else? Because otherwise, kind of, if you're doing it just for the numbers, I think you quickly lose that energy and that motivation. I think one of the things that people um, don't really consider as they're going through entrepreneurship is it's not just the number of hours that you're pouring in, but it's the amount of energy that's associated with those hours, right? Like if you're not feeling very excited or passionate or motivated, then you're not going to get as much done in that hour than if you actually cared about what you were doing, right? And so I think, many times people will start something new, be very, very excited, right? And kind of pour in all this energy and see it grow really fast. And then they fall into the trap of it's growing so fast. We need to keep up this growth. And then they forget why they're doing it in the first place, right? They kind of focus on just the numbers and they burn out and they say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm quitting, right? And so I see so many, really great ideas have this really amazing burst phase and then kind of die off very quickly because I think the founders forgot to remind themselves, why am I doing this, right? And so I think it's really important to keep that in mind because we definitely had to struggle through that desert, I guess, of
Yeah.
self-exploration. What is it that we're here to do? Why are we doing it?
Mhm.
And so being able to answer that question with directional confidence can really help to keep you on track
Yeah,
and keep you going. Yeah.
definitely. And while going through this journey of growing your company, what were some of the monumental successes that you came across?
Yeah, great question.
Mhm.
So I think one of the things that was really amazing. So Kevin, the one of the other co-founders of Product Manager
Okay.
HQ,
Mhm.
he did a really amazing job, kind of getting the word out through Quora, right? So for
Mhm.
those who aren't familiar, kind of Quora is like this public forum where people ask questions and then
Mhm.
people can answer. And I think back then, because Quora was still kind of in its Wild West days,
Yeah.
they didn't have as many restrictions on like being able to link back to other sites or being able to self promote. So I
Mhm.
think one of the things that he did really, really well and really tastefully was, he would go and answer people's questions on product management. And
Mhm.
then he would say, by the way, if you're looking for more, productmanagerhq.com is the place to go to like meet other folks like us to like learn, etc. And
Mhm.
that was actually such an effective way to get the word out there, right? Because then it was almost like freemium product, right? Where
Yeah.
you give people a taste of this is the value that you could be getting if you were with us, right? Because you already see like we have this really well crafted answer here on Quora. Why
Mhm.
don't you come join our community so that you don't have to stick around on Quora and hope for someone to come answer? You have that community at your fingertips at all times, right? And so that was really monumentally successful in
Mhm.
terms of you know leveraging Quora to get the word out. And so I think I know that a lot of people like to use the term growth hacking. I don't necessarily think of it that way. I think it was
Yeah.
very much more, you know, mm, Kevin knew his strengths
Mhm.
of being able to answer questions authentically, well structured, but also like authentically link back. and having that motivation to answer other people's questions. And kind of by tying that in, we saw a lot of kind of inbound growth from Quora by being able to do that. So I think that was really one of the monumental turning points in making Product Manager HQ so successful.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to, take advantage of Quora at the beginning of when they were not scrutinizing it so much. That's great. That's amazing. And so I understand that you're working most of the time, but what do you do when you're not working?
That's a great question. So the way that I would think about my time is I basically bucket it into, there is my there's my full-time work as a product manager at Blend. Then there is my quote unquote extracurricular entrepreneurship work for Product Manager HQ. And outside of that, then there's personal time, right? So I think in terms of that personal time, really enjoy catching up with family, right? Like whether that's over Skype or over the phone. I really enjoy playing video games with my younger brother. Like that is how we bond together and kind of stay in touch with each other. Really enjoy going on walks with my significant other, as well as cooking together. Kind of the pandemic forced us all to learn how to cook, and so I have been very lucky to have learned a lot of really great new ways to cook. So I would say like those would be kind of the core ways that I spend my free time. I'd say kind of in the past, I think I had spent more time reading. But I think one of the things that I definitely had challenges with was, if I was reading the news too often, I would get a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety would make me not want to engage with the people who are really important in my life or bring the right level of energy to Product Manager HQ or Blend. And so I think one of the things that I explicitly did was I said, there are just certain categories of news that I'm not going to read, or at least like try to read in real time, because that is not helping me create a positive impact in the world. So I did have to restructure some of that free time so that way I could maintain the energy, because I noticed that even though I thought I was taking a break, I definitely wasn't, and it was definitely making me more tired. So
Okay, interesting. So could you share an important lesson that you learned from life?
That is, so I think, one of the really important lessons, I think, is it's all about showing up, right? I think many times people will say, well, hey, I'm currently doing, this thing, right, that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm just going to keep doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, right? I think people don't ask themselves enough, what is it that I want to do, and how can I bake more of that into what I'm currently doing? And the reason why I say that is because my journey into product management was actually not a linear one. It was very almost random. It was very serendipitous, right? And it was because I showed up and did more than what the job description said that I accidentally became a product manager, right? So for a little bit of that context, I originally started as a management consultant right out of college. And the reason why I did that was because I said, well, I have no idea what I'm doing with my biology major and my business major. These two don't seem to line up. I'm going to go do management consulting to learn about, what are the problems that big companies face, right? Like how can I help them with their challenges? And I think as I was doing that, one of the things that we had, as consultants is we had this proprietary platform that we used basically to train users on, how can they conduct these analyses on how their business is doing. But the challenge is that that software was, written by PhD statisticians, but the end users were not PhD statisticians. They were marketing analysts, operational analysts. And so it was just very hard to use software. And so, one of the things that we were told as management consultants to do is, get on the phone with your customers 3 to 4 hours a day and basically act as tech support, right? Like, oh, like if they're struggling with how to run this analysis or they don't understand this error, right? Like go explain it to them. And we do that to build a customer relationship. And so I think a lot of us spend our time that way. But I said, I don't really think that that's the best use of our time, because the fundamental problem is the software is not that easy to understand, right? Like it's kind of weird that we should all be sitting here on the phone building relationships, which to be fair is valuable, but there must be a better way to do this. And so instead of just fielding kind of the questions that my customers started giving me, I started asking them, okay, well, why? What were you trying to do when you hit this error? Or what is it that you expected? And kind of from there, I accidentally fell into user research, right? Basically, I was bringing all of these pains and synthesizing them and then surfacing it back to our PhD statistician team to refine the product, basically to make it so that our users would have an easier time. And because of that user research experience, that kind of led me down the path into product analytics, which then led me down the path into product strategy and then turned me into a product manager. And kind of for each step of that way, which I won't bore everyone with, a lot of it was because I did a lot more than what people thought I was supposed to do, right? Like my job description when I became a user researcher is, well, go do user research. But when I found the insights, I said, it's not enough that we have these insights. We should make a business out of it, right? So I had to convince my executives that we should go do this, which is when I accidentally became a product analyst, right? And so kind of with each incremental step in my journey into product management, it was all because I showed up and did more because I wanted to do more. And by wanting to do more and actually doing it, that gave people the insight of, oh, well, Clement knows how to do these other things. Maybe we should have him do that full time instead, right? And kind of that enabled me to kind of keep reaching upwards. So yeah, I think one of the things that people don't do enough of is ask themselves, why am I doing this particular role? Is there something else that I want to be doing with it? How can I bend this role into something that I want it to be? And you can actually have all of this, what we like to call entrepreneurship, right? Or like micro entrepreneurship, even within your own full-time role within a company. You can still have that without necessarily having to start your own company. So I think people can do a lot more bringing themselves into why am I doing this and bring more of what they want to get done. I think that can really unlock a lot of new doors that people might not expect.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting career transition as well. So what keeps you moving forward in life?
Yeah, great question. So I think for me, one of the things that I decided kind of early on, I guess, is in high school, I decided that what I wanted to do with my life was to make other people's lives happier, easier, and better. And the reason why I had that insight was because I was struggling a lot with depression. And so I was really suffering back then. And I felt like, no matter what I do to try to make myself happy, it doesn't stick, right? Like I can go achieve as much as I want to achieve and it's not going to stick. But what's the thing that makes me happy, right? Like back then in high school, I learned that when I tutor other people, I get really happy, not because of the money, right? Not because of the recognition or the fame, but because I love seeing my students smile. They finally got it and they stopped worrying about their tests, right? I'm like, that is amazing, right? I really enjoyed being able to volunteer because I could see other people smile. And so I noticed that every time I made someone's life a little bit better, my life got better. Like I really enjoyed that. And so for me, the thing is, I really want to make sure that I am improving other people's lives, which is why I'm really focused on, I'm really excited about my role at Product Manager HQ. I get to help so many people move into these dream careers that they've wanted. And that is really amazing to see, that I'm able to drive that, not just here in the United States, but in, so many different geographies where product management is not so well known yet, right? It's been really amazing to see, people in, Nigeria, in Kenya, in Vietnam, in the Ukraine kind of reaching out and saying, oh my gosh, Clement, you changed my professional life. You enabled me to get a career that I would have never been able to have before. And that is just so amazing, right? So I think for me, it's all about how can I make other people's lives better? And that is what really drives me, both at Product Manager HQ and at Blend. So that's just what really keeps me going.
That's amazing. What's the, okay, yeah. So what's your favorite book and why?
So actually, I have two favorite books, but they're both from the same author. So the first one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the second one is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Both of them are by Dale Carnegie. And I had found these books back when I was in high school, again, kind of when I was working through that depressive period. And I think it was just such a new way of looking at life, right? Kind of instead of me always complaining about, well, why does my life suck and why do things have to be so hard? A lot more of it was, well, hey, look, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control the way that we react to it, right? And we can't control, whether other people will like us, but we can do what we can to make their lives better, right? And so I think that those were all such amazing insights to have kind of as I was going through a really formative period of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of those are books that I still regularly reread, maybe, once or twice every year, just
Mm-hmm.
because it really reminds me that, at least for me, my purpose in the world is to make other people's lives better. And so like that has been really good to keep refreshing of, I don't have to carry all of the world's burdens on myself, right? Like I can only do so much. So stop worrying, right? And
Yeah.
just focus on what I can control, focus on what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And also just remember that, other people are people, right? Like people are not a means to an end, right? Like, yes, you can make profits off of people. And yes, kind of you can earn revenue off of people. But at the end of the day, all of us are human. Like all of us want to be respected. We want to be recognized. We want to be able to do things that we find important, right? And so if I can really focus on the human behind the customer,
Mm-hmm.
that has really enabled me to drive a lot deeper impact. And that has really made me really excited about all the different kinds of work that I do. So I think those two books have been really, really transformative for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read one of those books and I completely agree with you. Okay, so what's the best and worst part of being a CEO or running a company?
Yeah, for sure. So I think being a co-founder, one of the best parts
Mhm.
is you get to drive the vision, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever it is that you think the company should be doing, right? Like you get to bring people down that direction.
Mhm.
Um, but that also comes with one of the worst parts of you know um, what if you choose wrong, right? Kind of all of that responsibility is sitting on you. And
Definitely.
so I think it's the whole, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Um, I think the thing that really, reminds me to, be a servant leader and to be humble
Mhm.
is that, there are all of these people who are relying on me in the decisions that I make. And so remembering to keep their needs in mind really helps to make sure that I'm grounded and not just doing things just because I think they're right, but because it's right for my teams and my customers, and for our entire organization, right?
Mhm.
So I think that has really helped me kind of work through the worst of it.
Mhm.
um, because yeah, I think one of the challenges is, paradoxically, the more responsibility that you get and the more that other people trust you, the
Mhm.
worse your imposter syndrome gets,
Mhm.
right? So I think, there are times when I think, oh my gosh, I don't know why I am doing all of this stuff when I don't feel like the most qualified person to do it. And
Mhm.
I think that goes all the way back to one of the things I mentioned earlier is you don't necessarily have to be the most qualified person to do it, but as long as you're showing up and you're doing it and no one else is doing it, you're providing value in the world that no one else is, right? And so I
Mhm.
think a lot of it is just reminding yourself that because of what it is that you're doing, because you are showing up in a place where no one else is showing up, that itself creates value in the world, right? So I think that has really helped me to kind of work through some of the hardest parts of being a co-founder, for sure.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so um, do you have a pledge for 2021?
Yeah, great question.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't necessarily have, let's say a specific pledge or a specific resolution.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is all going back to, my personal mission, which is to make other people's lives, happier, better, easier.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is that one of the things that I did get to knock off of the bucket list is I did just publish this book on product management. And so that is actually one of 3 books that I published so far, which is really exciting. I would say that now that I've got kind of these 3 books out there, I think one of the things that I want to do is I want to take a step back and continue to think about are there other ways for me to provide impact outside of simply speaking and writing? What are other ways that I can make other people's lives better, right? So I think I have had the opportunity to select a way to drive impact and kind of see that come through. I think now what are the things I want to do is this still the right set of things I should be doing to create impact, or are there higher levers that I can go ahead and pull? So I think that's one of the things that I'm going to be continuing to look at is how can I continue to make other people's lives better through the work that I do every day?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, so now we have reached the rapid fire section of this interview, and I'm going to ask you short questions. Try to keep your answers short as well. And if you come across any question that you don't want to answer, you can say skip and I'll move on to the next one.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Are you an Android or iPhone person?
Android.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Uh-huh. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Drink coffee.
Okay. Three things no one knows about you.
Three things no one knows about me. Let me think. One, I used to really suck at writing.
Okay.
Two, I am still scared of the dark.
Mhm.
Three, I guess not necessarily people don't know this, but just I love it that people do know this. I'm super close with my younger brother. So just, very, very close with my family, and very, very proud to be close to everyone there. So not necessarily not a well-known fact, but something that I wish people knew more about.
That's great. What's the craziest thing someone has done for you?
What is the craziest thing that someone has done for me? Yeah, I think the craziest thing is when Kevin invited me to join him on this journey for Product Manager HQ. That has been super crazy, and that has been a ton of fun.
Awesome. What's the one thing that you would like to change about yourself?
What's the one thing that I would like to change about myself? That's actually a really hard question. Let me get back to that one later.
Sure, no problem. What's your spirit animal?
Monkey.
Okay. A rumor about you that you wish were true.
A rumor about me that I wish were true.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to think that I have an army of writers who are writing all of this content. It is unfortunately a one-man shop. I do all of the writing myself. I wish I had a bunch of people writing for me, but I'm the sole writer. So yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. What's the easiest way to piss you off?
What's the easiest way to piss me off? Oh, I know, being late. That is my biggest pet peeve. I hate it when other people are late. I think 5 minutes is okay, but I've had people be late for more than 2 hours, and that is really frustrating. So yeah.
Okay. What's the one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
One thing that I own that I wish I didn't. I have a general problem of hoarding things. And so I have a lot of kind of old blankets or old t-shirts that I really just need to get rid of. And I just haven't gotten around to it because it's, well, it has some incremental value. Maybe I'll use it someday. So I really need to go clean out my closet at some point. So yeah.
Okay. What's the one thing that you're most afraid of?
One thing that I'm most afraid of. I'm afraid of death. I think that one's kind of obvious. And so I think that is partially why I really want to make other people's lives better, because that's how I can live on kind of through the improved lives of others. So that's something that really drives me, is just, one day I will no longer be on earth. What will I have done? I will have made other people's lives better, and they will continue living in my absence. And so that's what really motivates me.
Definitely. What's the most interesting thing that you have in your purse or wallet?
Honestly, nothing. Actually, no. My driver's license has a picture of me from when I was 16. And so I think one of the things that's always very fun is when I'm going grocery shopping and, grabbing some alcohol. Of course, the cashier will say, oh, well, I'd like to see some ID. I give them the ID, right? And of course, the date lines up. I'm currently, 28 years old. But they'll look at it and they'll do a double take because it's, wow, this picture looks really young.
Yeah.
So that one's probably the most fun one. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So according to you, what new technology will transform the future?
I think, plant-based meat is something that is really, really important. And I think that will really change the future. And so, funnily enough, again, my co-founder, Kevin, he is currently running a plant-based meat startup. It's called Imi. It's Imi Ramen. And so basically, plant-based ramen, including plant-based meat. I think that's really important just because creating more sustainable alternative proteins is a great way to make the earth not have so much global warming, and also really make sure that our food chains are a lot more secure, right? I think really right now, as we see with the pandemic, right, raising animals for food can really drive a lot of virus transmission, and kind of growing plants and turning that into meat is a much better way of doing it. So I think that's really a transformative technology of plant-based meat for sure.
Definitely. So now you have to rate yourself on the following from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. So first one is quick learner.
9.
Okay. Book enthusiast.
6.
Okay. As a leader.
4.
Okay. As a business owner.
5.
Okay. As a friend.
7.
Okay, great. So with that, we have reached the end of this interview. And before I leave you, I just have one more question for you. Could you think of 3 other people who might be interested in, doing this interview with me, and probably introduce me to 3 of them? And if yes, please, do so after this interview. You can use email, you can use LinkedIn, or if you want to mention them now, you can do that now as well. That's up to you.
Yeah, great question. I will follow up afterwards, just because I'm not quite as good at thinking on the spot. And so if you'd said spontaneity on the rate of 1 to 10, I would have said 0. It's not even 1. So definitely not spontaneous. So I'll definitely follow up afterwards.
Yeah, no problem at all. So thank you, Clement. Thank you for coming on to this talk show and doing this interview with me. Thank you for taking out some time to share glimpses of your life, about your background, about the things that you've done, about the things you've shared today that people might not know and might come to know after watching this interview. So thank you for doing all this today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Clement. Take care. Bye.